Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good morning to you. You're in California?
I'm in California in my music studio in Los Angeles County talking to you.
I love that. Let me pull up your bio real quick, and I would love to let our listeners hear about who we're talking to today. And
They might want to know that I've composed 786 original songs with my friends.
wow. So can we just jump into that? I know you're a very experienced, highly esteemed bankruptcy attorney, and I'm so pleased and privileged to talk to you today.
You told me this was a music only interview.
No, this isn't. It can be about. We can talk. Let's just talk about music. I'm happy to just talk about music, but I would love to talk about both sides of your life here
Okay.
today. And I know you're going to have a lot of really good things to say about everything because that's the kind of guy you are. I love your vibe. I've always loved your vibe since the first time I met you. And before we get into that, how did you wrote 782 songs? How did you get in the music
This is
industry?
my business card.
What is that?
Bovitz.com guitar pick.
Okay,
I
tell me
give
about
away
it.
I give away guitar picks. There was a time they had a Pinterest page, the ABA, American Bar Association,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, 15 years ago, and they picked my card as one of the top 10 cards in the country. I thought that says that's a pretty good business card.
I need one of those. You know I play the guitar too, right? We talked about.
I didn't give you any picks when we were together last.
I think you did. I need that pick. Where's that pick? I need another one.
Yes, you do.
I generally use my fingers, but I'm nowhere near as experienced as you are in music, and I dabble. But tell me about the songwriting, just real briefly before we get into everything else.
I wrote a song for a girl in eighth grade and it didn't win her heart. So I didn't do anything for a lot of years, but somewhere in the mid career, you talk about your pivots and stuff. I decided I needed to take advantage of some of the classes that UCLA offers, University of California, Los Angeles,
Uh-huh.
on their extension program. And I took some classes in some software stuff, some of the things we've talked about today,
Hmm.
early Adobe programs, and Dreamweaver, which is a software program I used to post stuff. And then I saw one on recording. And I thought, well, I kind of like recording. So I
Yeah.
went in there and I started taking a class from a guy named David Banta,
Hmm.
who was a professional in the industry, still is. And we were learning how to use microphones and the wires and all this stuff. And he said, but the way we're going to illustrate what you're doing is we're going to record songs. So we started recording songs. And that meant since I didn't then have anybody to write with me, I just started writing some crappy songs and recording them and going through that. And now I'm 786 songs down the road. I've got two all lawyer bands. We never meet in person. We send stuff back and forth electronically, and that's how I got started in it.
How cool. Have you made records and sold the records? Are
All
you
of
on,
it,
you
all
on
of the.
Apple Music?
I didn't hear the question.
Are you on Apple Music?
Well, no, and that's a funny sort of thing. We have all lawyers in these bands, and we post everything on Bovitz.com. It links to Bovitz.biz, but that's my last name,
Yeah.
Bovitz. But
Yeah.
um, when we started composing, we started writing. What we realized is no song is ever done.
Hmm.
So the sax guy, Dan Barness, over here in the valley, he's about 30 miles away. He'll say, "Hey, wait, swap that sax part out and put this in." And so we do that. And then the singer who's in Chicago and Washington goes between those cities. He says, no, then I got to re-record this. And so no song was ever done. So we realized we couldn't ever post anything because once you post it, it's done. It's like
Right.
your hands in concrete in the front of your sidewalk there, it's down. But we've had a discussion recently, and in fact, the one of the two bands, the Rick Haskabar project, which Rick Haskabar doesn't exist, that's just an amalgam of our names, has decided we're going to post some songs because what the hell, we haven't worked on them now in a couple of years on our top songs. So we're going to do that on my project as the recording engineer. I compose and I do stuff, but I also put everything together. Is to actually come up with the best of the 27 takes we did of this song or that song, so that
Yeah.
we have something everybody can approve, and then we can post. And Chicago guy is Damian Reel has said that he'll actually go through the process of getting us posted everywhere.
Very cool. So you play the keyboard or do you sing as well or?
I sing only badly. And yes, I play keyboards. At one time I had 40 keyboards, 40 synthesizers. Family had an intervention, said maybe 40 is too many, and we're down to about 20 now. So,
All right.
I guess I'm over that particular crisis. By the way, Damien, the singer in that band, the Rick Escobar Project, he says one of the problems with music is the constant allegation that you're violating somebody's copyright. Now, you can go way back and do box stuff, sort of the way the Beatles did it, or you can, come forward and try and find a gap. And so what he did is he did a computer program to find all of the melodies, I think within 12 bars is the way he set it up. So this was now about 5 years ago, that all the melodies that had not been used in any top 40 song for, X number of years. And he published them and he gave a Creative Commons license to everybody so that anybody can use any of those melodies in their songs without copyright violation. So he's kind of locked in that round. I thought that was very creative of him.
Very creative. Very creative. I love the connect back to lawyers and intellectual property. I want to say too, it says in your bio here, as I'm going to read it really briefly, the American Bar Association has licensed songs from Scott for the ABA Business Bankruptcy Basics and the Bad Boys in Bankruptcy podcast.
Yeah, your happy group, the American Bar Association, does podcasts, and it has licensed songs for the intro and the outro, sort of the lead-in music and out. Yeah. And we have 2 of our songs have been licensed. And Judge Gunn is the podcast maestro of one of those podcasts. She's a bankruptcy judge back east. So.
Yeah.
And it says, so I'm a licensed, I've done that. Also, I've sent out, a lot of kids have high school events and they need to do a video for this or that. And I'll be happy to license them to have a free music and stuff like that. So that's kind of fun.
I love that. I remember.
Are we done now?
Well,
okay,
we're going to segue. We're going to segue back to the beginning. But I do remember meeting you. I saw you in videos on the ABC website when I was studying board certified, and you were in them. I remember you very much from that.
Well, what the American Board of Certification, of course, everybody knows that, right? This is the thing is a great organization that certifies legal specialists nationally in business bankruptcy and consumer bankruptcy and creditors' rights. And back when I was on that officer track, I thought, well, we need more vid. We need more faces on there. And so we set up a couple of bad video arrangements with too much background noise and everything else. But, when we could, we like to put up something to tell people we think, hey, this is a great thing. So in a way, it's advertising, and in a way, it's self-aggrandizement, and in a way, I was playing your role as the interviewer, and so that was fun. We also did some educational classes to help people take the exam, and that was Candace Carline, one of our ex-chairs, very active in Las Vegas, really was a big fan of that, because we don't want people to be afraid of taking the exam to become a certified specialist. That's kind of a big step. The exam it's really not hard if you're a regular practitioner. That's my view. But we still wanted people to watch the video and go, I know that.
Yeah.
Read up on this and, go through that process. So thank you for saying that you've watched my videos.
I've watched your videos, and it did make the process of taking that exam easier for me, and just super grateful. You've been very welcoming, and I've been board certified. I can't remember, maybe 2018. But it's been
when you were 11.
Yeah, I don't know. I was a little late to the game on all this, but I am super grateful, and I love doing these videos so that people can. So I humanize other bankruptcy lawyers, get to know you, get to know where you practice, and hear your stories. You are a fascinating human being, and I want to. I have a lot of Facebook friends from high school. They're not lawyers, right? There's a lot on there. People that they're not lawyers. They don't know anything about business law, but we are all midlifers, and we all have challenges, and everyone, whether you're midlife or whatever, like 20. I remember when I was 25, I was reading the book Quarter Life Crisis. And it's about being 25 and confronted with challenges because you're no longer in college and you're working and you don't have the same social. I mean, at every stage in your life, you have challenges. So I can't wait to get in this with you and hear some of the things that you've been experiencing.
Right. At every stage of life, you're in charge of your life. Your life is your life. There's nobody else in charge. Everybody gives advice, okay, and it flies in from all over the place. But you're in charge of your life and you're responsible. And everyone has a certain amount of luck and a certain amount of opportunities. Some have more than others, but they do. And the question is, what do they do at the forks in the road? And how do they go? And, of course, once in a while we think of people, well, gee, I'm just in the wrong profession to begin with. And I've taught now 3 law schools as an adjunct. And I think you should know before you go to law school, that this is not for you. But within the law, there's so many different bits as well, right? Yeah. And so, having those conversations with people is very interesting to me.
It is, and important. Let me just give people a little bit of your background. So you are a senior partner at Bovitz Spitzer in Los Angeles, California.
Yep.
And you own the firm with your spouse since 1991. Yep. You were admitted to practice law in 1990.
Stop for a second. Realize that. Okay, I've been married since '84. I'm 1,000 years old, but I convinced her in '91 to go out. I was with a big firm when it's different ways. And so I said, it's a great time to start our own practice. And Susan Spitzer, my spouse, she said the right and logical thing, which, get a job. Are you kidding me? You've been working big law, no reason. No, really, honey, we can do this. And it would be fun. And we'd be our boss. And anyway, eventually I negotiated away, all of my rights and future draft picks and everything. And she agreed to do that, and we've been doing that since '91. Just being with a spouse for that long is, a miracle in modern society. Not a miracle with Susan. I'm not saying that. I'm saying a miracle in modern society. Right. And then to have a law partner, it's a special thing. Your conversations at dinner might be over, the local sports team, might be over what happened to the cousin, and it might be over what happened with that client, or how we should do that.
So it's interesting because a lot of people who are board certified are with smaller firms or have their own firm like me. And so is she a bankruptcy lawyer?
Yes, no. I would say that she spends most of her time dealing with homeowners associations these days more than anything else. And just retired as the president of our 702 homeowners association, which has every problem in the world. It's, corporate counsel's worst nightmare, if you will, in connection with that. But yeah, she's trained as a bankruptcy lawyer, and that's what she did.
Okay, I'm going to let you get into that and make a little pitch for your practice, but I just want people to know who we're.
I pitched. What else do I need to say? Go ahead.
I want people to know who I'm dealing with here. You're a fellow in the American College of Bankruptcy. You're board certified in business bankruptcy law with the American Board of Certification, and you are a past chair of the organization, which is a big deal. It's a huge responsibility and just speaks volumes to anybody who's the chair of this group.
You get to sit on this elevated platform at the board meetings where you're up a few feet.
Okay, maybe for me someday. You're a certified specialist in bankruptcy law by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization.
Yep.
You've been super lawyer in Southern California every year in bankruptcy and creditor and debtor rights. You mentioned you're an adjunct professor at University of Nevada, California Western School of Law, and Loyola Law School.
I've taught at all those schools. I think UNLV still has me up. I don't have any current class duties.
And did you teach bankruptcy law or business law or?
I've taught bankruptcy. I've taught enforcement of judgments. I've taught evidence. I've taught UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. But bankruptcy is my thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And we are bankruptcy like you.
Yeah. You're a past president of the Los Angeles Bankruptcy Forum. And I'm going to jump in here. And you mentioned you're the founder and webmaster of bankruptcy.com in 2004. It was almost 20 years ago. It's over 20 years ago.
Back when nobody knew how to do web pages, we were all writing HTML code to do stuff. We realized that in Los Angeles, we're blessed. We have Financial Lawyers Conference. And we have a TMA, Turnaround Managers Association. We have Los Angeles Bankruptcy Forum. We have the Orange County Bankruptcy Forum. It goes on and on and on, okay? And everybody was setting their events like on the same day or one day apart. But the group, if you think of Los Angeles as Uber Los Angeles has 20 million people with 6 counties around. People drive around to go to these various events. So I thought, well, why are we limiting ourselves? So because you'll say, oh, geez, I can go to 1 thing or 2 things this week, but not 4 things. So I thought, well, we need a calendar. So I wanted to come up with a name and a calendar site and keep track. And so I've done that. So basically it's just events. Typically you have maybe a dozen events a month out here in connection with that, and 2 or 3 announcements. We have announcements about the December 1st changes to the Federal Rules of Bankruptcy Procedure and Federal Rules of Civil Procedure on there now, just so we know that. Or if there's an opening for a bankruptcy judge, people want to know that stuff that's in our community that would be just discussed at a bar function goes up there. And I run that and spend a little bit of time on that every day.
Very cool. I love that.
We used to have a dog photo on there of rotating dogs of different people within our community. But after a while, it changed to different kinds of animals and cats and other things. Currently, we have a penguin up there. So it's just a little bit of humor and evolution in the bankruptcydog.com world.
I love that. I have to check that out. So tell us basically who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm a bankruptcy litigator. I spend my time in federal court, bankruptcy court, in the Central District of California, which has 6 counties, but primarily Los Angeles and Orange County, Santa Ana, and sometimes Woodland Hills, sometimes Santa Barbara. We have, at different times, almost 20 judges out here, which makes us one of the judge-heaviest districts in the country. And I do specific things to defend preferences. Those people who are bankruptcy lawyers will appreciate this. Those people who don't know anything about it are like, what are we talking about? Defending fraudulent transfers, occasionally prosecuting or defending non-dischargeability litigation, sometimes objecting to confirmation of complicated plans, where I'll represent somebody where I don't have a conflict because we're a little 2-person firm, so we don't represent everybody in the creditor chain, so we can take a specific thing, represent landlords. And that's what we do. So we represent specific individuals or companies within the bankruptcy system appearing in court, trying contested matters or adversary proceedings. That's the formal thing. From my mother's perspective, it would be, what do you do again? Have you been to court yet? Yes, Mom, I have. I go to court. Sometimes, wait. Sometimes I'm a spokesperson on various media things. When the Dodgers filed bankruptcy, everybody forgot about that 10 years ago. I was on CBS 14 times answering questions, but each time the reporter would say, now you be sure and tell them their tickets are still good. They can go to the stadium and show up for games connected with it. Okay, go ahead.
How'd you get that gig?
I got called. Well, I used to do some stuff on I'm sorry about that. I'm glad that's not my dog, because then I don't get any demerits for that. At local radio stations have a constant need for spokespeople, different experts, and I would go to KNX and KFWB, which has now been sold, but to 2 different stations, and appear on money programs, like financial programs, and answer questions. That's fun. You're sitting there in a chair and there's a host over there like this, except the phone is ringing. You have no idea who's calling in or what they're going to ask. And the host says, all right, now we're going to hear from Jane in Orange, California. And Jane would ask some question. You can't quite give Jane the specialized advice without, you don't want to do that. And yet you want to give your audience something interesting to listen to so they don't, tweak to the top 40 station or whatever in connection with, and the Bob Moneymaker was one of the hosts, but he would give you the amount of time you have to answer that question. It might be a long time, or it might be, wrap it up, Bovitz, you got to go through that process. So I was on their list, CBS's list of, somebody who can answer a question and do a good job. And I think that's ultimately how I ended up doing that. And every now and then reporters call with questions, and I think reporters are fun because they have infinitely short deadlines to answer really complicated questions. When 23andMe filed, someone called, they're doing a an article literally overnight on privacy issues within bankruptcy and can you sell customer information, DNA information. And I'm sitting in an airport in Miami, trying to duck in someplace where the reporter could hear me answering those kind of questions. I'm happy to do that. I like it. And I think that's a great way to introduce yourself as an expert, quote unquote, in whatever field you're doing, to be friendly to the people who will, hopefully learn something from what you say. We'll learn that you're an expert and we'll call you again in connection with that. And then every now and then you get on TV, and my mom, who's gone now, when she saw me on TV, she finally knew I was really a lawyer. She said, yes, my son really is a lawyer. I've seen him on TV.
That's so cool. I know my mom, she it's interesting because she doesn't exactly know either. But so do you only do creditor work?
I represent, advise people who have financial distress, particularly management of financially distressed companies, but I don't file any Chapter 11 petitions anymore. That just takes up too much time for a little firm and means that you can't really devote the time to the other people you already have in-house. It's sort of, I kind of view the bankruptcy arc could be, I started as a consumer debtor lawyer, then I was a consumer creditor lawyer, then I was a business debtor lawyer, then I became a business creditor lawyer. And as a prof, I get called as an ex-prof or professor, you get called with weird questions from people. So I do a wide variety of things. I do local counsel work, appearing in matters for other firms that don't have, Los Angeles counsel in connection with that. So I'm not sure that's the response to your question, but I'm sure there'll be an objection. It was non-responsive.
No, I that's what I wanted to know. And just along those lines, it says here, where, you told us where it's based. It's Los Angeles and Orange County. And what makes it unique? Oh, you're muted somehow.
Whoa, I was. No, I slipped on that. Sorry. What makes Los Angeles unique is the movies, of course. No, is that what you're talking about? Or
what makes your practice unique? Like, are you in a specific industry, or do you focus on a particular type of client?
For 10 years, I represented a telecommunications company. That was kind of interesting, collecting debts. And they have all kinds of debts, some commercial debts, and you have to learn the whole industry in connection with it. How does that phone call from your house get to somebody in Hawaii? And the answer is it goes through the airwaves some places, and it goes through mostly wires on the ground between different organizations that bill each other. The local area networks bill each other, by the quarter penny, really it's less than that for the use of their lines, and it goes back and forth. Anyway, so I've done that, and that's a fine thing to do. I've represented, going back years ago, Freddie Mac, which is how I met the bass player in the Rick Haskebar project. And he's a sophisticated senior guy, but most of the time I represent specific one-off events. And that's my bankruptcy practice. People who have a problem for now, and then I don't talk to them again except when they refer someone else to me, or if I'm lucky enough, maybe we go to dinner every now and then. Yeah.
For me, that's been one of the challenges of this area of law, is just one-off clients, and not having tons of repeat business. And I do a lot of debtor work. So
this is why the American Board of Certification is a perfect enterprise. It's a way for you to meet a national crowd of people that geez, I really don't know anybody in Omaha, but let me look it up, and here's somebody who's there, and you can call them up and see if they're capable of what you think they're able to do. And that's a comforting feeling. It's a comforting feeling to you when you're handing off a client to somebody else. And likewise, it means that they know you exist, right? And I've seen you in person, and we've talked in person, but, you don't really know, but you can remember, and go down the list. Now, that's from a lawyer's perspective. From a client's perspective, if they go to the American Board of Certification list of lawyers, they can take someone who's not on a billboard, right? You're driving down the road in LA. This guy says, come to me, $80 million one, and then you go another 100 feet. And she says, come to me, $100 million one. And what does that mean exactly? That means that they're looking for personal injury things, but You don't know anything about that lawyer. So you can do a nice web page. That's nice. But really, I think my source of clientele mostly, and probably your source of clientele, is other lawyers who, because that one-off business, you're not going to have the same repeat clients. And so it's nice to have an introduction to those folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is 80% of my referrals are from other lawyers. So tell me about an ideal client for you.
The hardest part of practicing law is client expectations, right? Second hardest part is getting paid for your work. But
right.
if the client expects too much and wants to pay too little because they don't really have a sense of the thing, that's not a perfect client. So a perfect client is probably the inverse of that. Somebody who's been through this before, business person. If you're representing a company that's in trouble, maybe the senior management is actually owns 3 or 4 companies, of which most are doing great, but this one company is doing poorly. And so they understand that there are issues, legal issues. Sometimes the ideal client, I love local counsel work because they understand exactly the circumstances and the subsection of the bankruptcy code, that federal law that involves something, and you can have deep conversations with them. But I love a client who understands what's going to happen, and when the result comes in within the parameters of our expectations, and they pay the bill, and I can take them to dinner every now and then when they come to town. That would be my ideal client.
I love how, very well said. Tell us about a memorable client engagement.
I was talking to Michael Dempsey, who's been a lawyer since he was a wee lad, now in his 80s, and he was reminding me that I was driving 50 Chapter 11 petitions to the Santa Ana Bankruptcy Court. This must have been late 80s to file on behalf of the Maxicare bankruptcy, and he says, Bovitz, that was a madhouse. You had a separate box for each case with all of its motions and everything in connection with it. I guess that was memorable. I don't know. I had a trial, let's see, with Judge Albert, who now passed too early, Ted Albert from Orange County, where we had 2 beauty queens arguing against each other about who said what. And I thought that was kind of interesting. You know, how do you rate the quality of the testimony of 2 ladies who know how to sway the opinions of people watching them in action in connection with that? I thought that was interesting.
Was that in the bankruptcy case?
Yeah, bankruptcy case, non-dischargeability partnership thing.
Do you do state court litigation?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I think out here the opinion is bankruptcy lawyers don't like state court because it's just not the same level of civility and knowledge and maybe seriousness of purpose in court, and you know, it's a kind of a wilder place. I used to go to state court to get writs of attachment, do enforcement of judgment thing, trying to levy on assets, and it's just a little too uncertain and a little too crazy. And I think at this stage of my practice, it wasn't a pivot exactly, but it was a decision. You know, when you start your business, I started in 80. You do whatever. I went to work for my bankruptcy professor. You do whatever a bankruptcy professor tells you to do because it's his practice. Then went to work with then what turned into Shea and Gould. It's a big national firm. Back then, big was maybe 300 lawyers. I don't know the exact number. Yeah. You do whatever they say you're going to do. But when you're on your own, you know, your question is, what is your scope of practice? And just deciding when you set your own practice, what is the scope of what we do? Having taught Uniform Commercial Code, I can do contract disputes. I could do that all night and all day, but that didn't really seem to be where my area of expertise was. It seemed to be my special area was within bankruptcy, so I figured they would have to be bankruptcy. And then within that, 2 people, you can't do a lot of stuff that involves, I'll call it more than maybe 8 witnesses, 8, maybe 10 witnesses. If you've got 3 major witnesses and the rest, and maybe 300 documents, it's kind of a workload size. If you're running an auto repair business, maybe you're the best person in the world to repair Scions, which are kind of breaking down and aren't made anymore. But you can't take on 25 cars a day if you've got 3 mechanics working on them. You need to have the parts and do that kind of stuff. So I think it's important if you're lucky enough to be able to choose discrete things where, again, people can understand what's going on and can appreciate it and can afford it, I would say it takes a dozen calls with prospective clients before I take a case, because there's just some different issue, or people think bankruptcy is magic wand to wave, gee, I'm about to lose a trial, I'm going to file bankruptcy and that'll show them. It doesn't always work like that. So those discussions might take a half hour, an hour. Don't charge them, thank them very much, tell them, bankruptcy's not for you. Go talk to someone else. You never want to say bankruptcy's not for you, and have that be the final thing. When you haven't met someone, you're just talking on the phone or talking by Zoom. So, those would be memorable thoughts.
Okay. Tell me what inspired you to pursue this particular path, and has that evolved over time?
Well, I wanted a job like everybody in law school, right? And my bankruptcy professor said to me before I got out of bankruptcy class, says, Bovitz, you can clerk for me and I'll pay you, I don't know what it was back then, but some outrageous sum. And so I said, okay. And then when I was waiting for bar results, he said, David Luna was his name, said, Bovitz, you can clerk for me after you're waiting for bar results. Because in California, you take the bar exam in July, you graduate in May, you take the bar exam in July, and you wait until Thanksgiving, to see if you pass. So what do you do in the middle? You're in limbo, right? It's the true purgatory, nothing to do. Well, he said you can work for me then. And then when I found out that I passed the bar, which I did, first time, thank you very much, appreciate that. He said, you could be my associate. So that's how the path got selected within that. And then a couple of years after I was working there, he had I'll call it a personal shout out with Loyola Law School over nothing really at all. But I got a call from the registrar, said, right about now, early December, said, would you like to teach bankruptcy at Loyola? I said, when? He said, well, starting in a month. I said, really? Okay. I figured I could do that and teach it. So once you've taught a class, now you have a field, right? You went to work with that person, you taught a field. And when you have a field, I think you dig in as long and as hard as you possibly can. It doesn't have to be bankruptcy. It could be some obscure section of the tax code. But if you become the expert at that, then you have value to give, even as a wee tadpole lawyer. And I think that's what makes people pay for our services. That's what makes you a success.
Mm-hmm. I taught business law also at Penn State.
Okay.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was hard to get to. It was far away. It was one of their branch locations, but I did enjoy it too.
Well, teaching is fun because the kids, put that in quotes because they're usually young adults by that time, sometimes older, ask the hardest, dumbest, best, most insightful questions all at once. So I think that just is a great way to do things.
That's true. How has your involvement with organizations like the ABC or any other organization shaped your professional journey?
A friend of mine, David Meadows, once said he didn't think there was anybody in Los Angeles County who didn't know Scott Bovitz. Scott Bovitz, that's me. That's me. If you're starting late on the video, okay, that's me. All right. Yeah. And I thought, what? That's a crazy thing. I've never been in trouble. It's not like, I've been arrested or something. And I think that's because the organizations give you a chance to volunteer. And so every time there's some job to be done, you're willing to put an oar in the water or write a paper or show up at a table and just check people into an event, whatever it is a great way to meet people. And when you meet people, it means when you run across them in a piece of litigation, you can call them up. Hey, geez, Salene, it's been a long time. How you doing? Hey, I'm sorry I just sued your client for $82 million. And that helps. And each organization kind of gives the introduction to the next organization. And now you've had some experience at doing this. On the State Bar of California certification, I started in the Personal and Bankruptcy Law Advisory Commission. We wrote the exam for the bankruptcy specialist in California and met those people. And then that led to an invitation to join the Board of Legal Specialization that dealt with 14 different categories. I'm not sure it's still 14, but they've added a couple in connection with that. And, you met more people that way. And then that led to, whatever. And ultimately, for the American Board of Certification, I was doing work for the board and on the board for many years and ultimately got to be an officer position. Each one of those kind of goes along. In the middle of all that, I was on the committee of bar examiners in California. And that's kind of fun because that has nothing to do with the practice of bankruptcy law. It has to do with administrative stuff. And in California, we have something like 15,000 people take the test a year. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of filing fees. That's a lot of reviewing moral character stuff. I was on the moral character committee for a couple of years, and it gives you a broad perspective. And again, you meet people and you go forward, and that's how organizations work. I put about a third of my time as what I call no charge, non-billable things, writing, lecturing. I've done a couple of hundred lectures on legal things to different people. Any two people in a phone booth if there still is a phone booth, who want me to show up and talk about something, I'm glad to do that. And that's how you meet people and grow. And so the organizations are very important. Participating in the organization, not just belonging, okay, but volunteering and participating is what has been very valuable to me.
Scott, it's interesting because that you say you spend a third of your time on non-billable stuff. As you run your own law practice, that's a significant chunk of time. Say if you're billing 2,000 hours, that's like 600, 700 hours.
Don't bill 2,000 hours anymore. That's a pivot.
I know.
No, but it is a lot. It is a lot of time. Go ahead. I'm with you.
And people ask me, well, how do you do all the things that you do? I mean, it is because I run my own practice, and the economics of it, because of the overhead and how much I can pay myself and all of that, it affords me time to do other things like non-billable work or other things that I want to do. Like I do, this is the other stuff that I do. That's
practicing football with your son.
Exactly. Not really. I can't catch anything he throws at me. It scares me, but I try. I do try. But it's been a huge blessing in my life to be able to do that. For me, it's been 16 years, but I did venture as a partner at different firms during that time. But it is daunting though, because there is not much repeat business. It's been a daunting, risk-taking adventure, but it does give you the time. So I didn't really get involved in ABC until I was really on my own. And even iWork or any of the other things, I wasn't that actively involved, but I was trying to learn the craft. So what advice should we give to younger lawyers or solo practitioners or anybody trying to build a book of business about organizations to belong to, and any advice that you have?
Belong to an organization that you care about. Don't sign up for the board of the Philharmonic if you don't care about music. By the way, I was a recording engineer for the Los Angeles Lawyers Philharmonic for 5 years, and it's a big band of barristers, 18 pieces. We did a CD. That's a lot of wire to haul around. It takes like 4 hours to set up, and then you record, and it takes 3 hours to break down, and then you've got to edit all that stuff on your computer in connection with that. Anyway, that's a lot of fun. But if you're in these organizations, I'm not sure the call of the question, but if you're in these organizations, you want to do something that you care about. Maybe you care about the long-term goal of the organization. You care about the people, and do stuff that you feel like you've been a part of a team when you put on something. The California Bankruptcy Forum is one of the annual conferences in California that we put on, and the Los Angeles Bankruptcy Forum has been a key player in building that up and starting that, going back to the 80s. And it involves a lot of work setting up, 12 or 15 different programs, sometimes more in connection with that. It also has a lot of fun stuff that goes along with it. And so when you participate in those things, you're meeting people, you're learning, because it's educational oriented, you're going through the process, and you're having fun, and you build it in your life. You don't have to justify it if you're in a small firm. In a big firm, maybe you have to say, I'm only going to spend 50 hours on this or something. And it might take 50 hours. It might take a lot more than that. It depends. I mean,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I see you have a very long laundry list of organizations in which you've been involved in, in leadership roles. And
if
it's,
somebody asks me,
mhm,
probably I'll say yes.
mhm,
Unless I don't like them. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
No, because that's you're talking about advice, right? Okay, advice is participate in all that. Another thing of advice is find a field and learn everything you possibly can. Don't be taking one set of MCLE courses, your continuing legal education, at the end of your time because you got to do it. Go to classes all the time. If you're in bankruptcy, you go to American Bankruptcy Institute, has programs on a regular basis. Connection with that, all my organization I talked about here, Financial Lawyers Conference, Los Angeles Bankruptcy Forum, on and on and on. You go to these because you learn things, you sharpen your sword, and you'll never master the law. The law is infinite, no matter what field, no matter how narrow it is. So just don't quit in connection with that. That's my view. And also, starting out, when I talk to the kids, go with the best opportunity that you have and work for somebody that you'd like to be like, right? I'd like to be like this lawyer. Now, maybe that lawyer is not you personality wise, but they're really, really good at a field or subject or something. I think that's important. That's probably advice, isn't it, for careers of all kinds,
Yeah.
become really, really good at something and keep developing it because that thing changes. I mean, you mentioned AI, artificial intelligence earlier. I don't know what AI is going to do. I gave a program on that to the Federal Bar Association just before Thanksgiving, and I brought in a guy who writes AI code for a hospital down here, actually a series of hospitals, and how it's become an adjunct to the medical professionals. So I don't really know what part of the law will change, but I know that you'll still be thinking, trying cases, advising people who are in very, very stressful situations about what their choices are and how to pick the best choice. And so that comes from just continuing to plug at it and you don't quit.
Right. Right. I love that. What's a pivot? I want to talk about a little bit about pivoting. What's a pivot moment, professional or personal, that changed the way you approach your work or your life?
Well, I think the pivot moment I talked about earlier, I was thinking about this, is starting Bovitz and Spitzer, blazing out from a nice office in a high rise in Century City and, figuring out what to do and how could we make the expenses as small as possible, because that's something you can control, right? And hope that the client would be there. That's probably the biggest pivot. Going back earlier, another pivot was deciding, yes, I am willing to teach, do what that takes. And a lecture for me takes 10 to 20 hours of prep for an hour of whatever you're doing. So if you're teaching twice a week, a couple hours, you're spending half your time, going through that process, and you still have your other workload. So,
Right.
Susan has to be willing to go get the pizzas because, you don't have time, and you work that out. A part of the pivot moment would be deciding to teach. I love teaching. Anytime anybody asks me to give a presentation, I'm ready to do that. And I like that. And I learn from that. And so it's a part of my personal education process. So I think those are pivot moments. But I didn't have anywhere in my life a thing like, oh, I thought I was going to be a professional surfer, but now I'm going to law school. It's
Yeah.
not a change of circumstances or character. I didn't have that crisis moment,
Yeah.
I guess. Is a pivot always a crisis? No, probably not.
Most of the time. How do you define success at this stage in your career and your life?
Well, again, being 1,000 years old, having enough money to retire when I want to, and I could have retired actually quite a bit of time ago, and I'm glad for that. So I'm comfortable, and I'm glad to be comfortable, so I can buy a piece of gear when I want to without suffering. So financial security is important. Security that the spouse has, is well taken care of when I fall off the roof of my converted television news van, in a couple of weekends from now. It doesn't really matter. She'll miss me, I hope, maybe, but, no, she will. But, I worry about that. I worry about, or I enjoy knowing a wide variety of people within our profession and having a personal relationship with them. So when you and I saw each other, I guess it was probably National Conference of Bankruptcy Judges.
Yeah.
I can walk into a room there. I don't have to have a conference date. I know that there'll be 20 people I can sit with, and I can pick somebody I'd like to talk to or go to. And I find that to be very comforting.
Yes. Yes. It's very, yes, I get all that. What, I'm moving through my questions. What lessons?
I hope I'm giving you enough trouble that you're
No,
having
it's all
difficulty hanging on to the question, because that's a deposition technique, of course. And I think you're going to go through this in chronological order, and you say, no, Salene, tell me about the accident. I know it was very hard on you. And you start crying, and you didn't mean to hit the boy in the crosswalk, did you? Sorry.
That's okay. What lessons or perspectives has midlife and experience given you that your younger self didn't have?
It's been a long continuum, and it hasn't been, gosh, the 30s were great, and 50s were great, but the 40s and 60s were bad, or whatever. I've just turned 70, and I don't have any intention of slowing down, until somebody tells me, Bovitz, you might want to think about retiring because your stuff is maybe not as good as it used to be, or you're getting forgetful, or something like that. Did I say that already? Sorry.
My mom was a real estate agent, and she retired at like 83.
I think you do something as long as you can. So my perspective over time is you never get off your path. You don't pause for a while to do something else. If you want to be really successful within this field, or whatever the field is, you just continue to grow within that field, and you're always looking for the next organization, the next class, the next opportunity, while doing your work and doing good work in connection with that. It's a never stop rowing the canoe.
Exactly. What role or does purpose, connection, or community play in your happiness today?
Well, I love being a part of a ham radio community. I've been a ham radio operator since '69, and I'm known, and I know lots of people in them, and I've known them when they were young, and I've known many of them as they passed on, and I knew them for a big part of their life. I like being a part of the bankruptcy community. Bankruptcy community is surprisingly small nationwide. Maybe there are 300 of us who are regular players in connection with that. And I know I love being a part of that. I love going to, you talked about the ABI Winter Leadership Meeting, which is always fun. And I was able to have a dinner with a few ex-chairs of the American Board of Certification. And it was just sort of spontaneous kind of, let's do this. And everyone said, yes, sure, of course, because these people who are sometimes your adversaries are your friends. They're your colleagues, the people you can call up and ask a question of and learn from, and where you're willing to give them the time too. So one of them calls me up, I'm in the middle of writing some really important brief, and I've got flow going, and I just don't want it. I'm like, no, I'll put this down. I can go back to that, and I'll talk to them. So the answer is, it is important to me.
Yeah. Okay. What advice do you have for business clients in distress or those navigating major change?
What was the last part of that?
Anyone navigating a major change, or business.
Part of the problem meeting with somebody in distress is they're not thinking clearly. Maybe they're too optimistic. Maybe they can't recognize hard facts. Maybe they don't have the hard facts because their accounting is really crappy. Maybe they've just been taken advantage of by somebody who stole a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought that poke was going to be the food of the future for everybody, and suddenly all the poke restaurants in our area are going out of business. So you want to give a helpful ear, a business ear. You want to give an understanding. They want to know when they call you the first time, if you're a bankruptcy person and they're in distress, they want to know, is bankruptcy for me? Is there any possibility that bankruptcy will solve a problem that I have? So you have to talk to them and understand what the problem is, be sympathetic, and tell them many times the answer is no, or maybe the answer is yes, but here are the risks and the costs of doing that. Here are the things that you need. Boy, talking about debtor in possession financing to somebody on the phone the first time, they're like, what are you talking about? You know, I filed bankruptcy. Why don't I have to pay anybody in connection with that? It depends on the call and the person and the sophistication.
Yeah. I want to jump into some of this personal segment because it's fun. Something people don't know about you.
This has all been personal, hasn't it?
It has all been personal, but this is completely non-business related. So I want to get to it. Something people don't know about you.
Well, I don't sing very well. I told you that. 786 songs. That's a lot of bad singing to hide. So we don't have a lot of songs with lyric. No, we have some, connection with that. I've been to 82 countries.
That is awesome. What do you do in your free time other than write songs?
Travel.
Other than write songs, what else do you like to do?
Well, I just got back from Galapagos and I like to take photos. I took about 3,000 photos because I discovered back when I took photos as a wee tyke that if you work really hard and maybe you get a good photo, but now in the modern digital photo era, if you take 3,000 photos, 100 of them are great, no matter what you do. It's the law of averages. And I post a lot of them to Bovitz.com so people can go see sort of a snapshot of travel and adventures, from my perspective. So I guess being a photographer is maybe something not everybody knows about.
Yeah, I forgot about that. We share that. I'll look at some of those. I'd love to see some of those photos. Hopefully you'll send me some.
Bovitz.com, they're up there for you.
Okay. What's your favorite Netflix show?
Favorite what?
Your favorite Netflix show?
I just finished on Apple, not on Netflix, but I just finished Slow Horses, which is a spy drama with some comedic stuff. And I'm watching Pluribus, which I think is also on Apple, which is a science fiction show. I liked Killing Eve, which I think that was a Netflix series, which is kind of odd. I tend to prefer movies because your movie can all get done in a block, and then you don't have to keep coming back every week for a period of time. I had a movie club, the Monday Night Lawyer Movie Club, unless it's on Tuesday. That was the name, the Monday Night Lawyer Movie Club, unless it's on Tuesday. We added the unless it's on Tuesday because we had somebody who kept missing the Monday thing, thinks it was Tuesday. Anyway, and we would go out to the local theater in downtown LA. And back when we were all in our offices on Monday, it was nice to have a break. And about 6 o'clock, we'd go out and we'd get a beer or a burger or both and then walk over to the theater. And so there would be back row of the theater, you'd have, 6 or 12 lawyer types sitting there looking really serious. And, other kids think, oh, we must be producers or narcs or something crazy. And then we would enjoy, the film. And I think we do that less post-COVID. I've not been able to get a group together on Mondays or Tuesdays in connection with that. And Wednesday, usually only in the office for a couple days a week now. So just hard to get a group in there.
Yeah. What's your best vacation?
My dog, the master level scent competitor who was a rescue, who's got 11 different things. I paid $290 to find out that he's mostly Chihuahua when I vet thought he was a terrier. So what was my favorite trip?
Now?
Pardon me?
Do you have a pet now?
Mr. Riley, Mister Riley. He's the Chihuahua mix. He's 10 years old. Mm-hmm. He's currently locked in Susan's office because Susan's there treating him to do that. You asked me what my favorite trip was. And I've been a lot of places. A recent favorite trip was the Northeast Greenland National Park. There's a national park, and I went to see the Northern Lights, which I had not seen. And we took an expedition ship from Iceland, Reykjavik, wonderful place, by the way, a good brewing capital.
Yeah.
And then started heading up north, and as weather permitted, we ended up going very far north of the Arctic Circle, so far north that we were watching the Northern Lights, we had to photograph them to the south, because they're not over the North Pole. There's a circle of Northern Lights that goes around the world. If you look at this on one of the programs available on the internet, and took some wonderful photos of the Northern Lights, and I really liked that. I liked taking little zodiacs from the ship and doing wet landings to walk amongst the tundra and, you know, see stuff that was truly not seen by anybody in the last 50 years or whatever.
Well, so what's a pivot you're most proud of?
Bovitz and Spitzer, start my own firm, 1991, still practicing.
And it says did not become a professional mime. Were you a professional mime? Were you a mime?
I was the head of a pantomime troupe, and in high school we toured around, and I won a scholarship to study acting in college, which I didn't take advantage of. I could have been a mime.
That is cool, Scott. What's that?
That's a good pivot.
It is a good pivot. A practice that keeps you grounded.
Writing music. It's a flow event. You just can't hear anything else.
Right. A principle that guides your decisions.
Golden rule and common sense. Those guide my decisions.
I love it. And then the last one, a person who's changed your trajectory.
I don't know who's changed my trajectory. I mean, maybe David Luna, because he offered me a job. Maybe Frank Rial, who was the registrar at Loyola, who asked me to teach. Maybe Michael Dempsey, who was the best litigator I saw in the 80s. And he was a certain professional in court, and he had a demeanor, and it didn't matter how difficult the judge was in connection with that. Maybe Candace Carlion, who asked me to be an officer of the American Board of Certification. Those are all people who've played a role.
I love that. Thank you so much for this. Okay.